What's up, everybody? This is episode 2 of Kofe Talk, a podcast in which we bring someone connected with the sports community to talk over a cup of coffee. Our next guest is the video production manager at Temple University, Richie Raspa. What's going on, brother?
How's it going?
I'm good. First off, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. You're obviously a special friend of mine. We've worked together at Temple and learned so much from you over my time there, and just really grateful to have you on the show.
Absolutely.
The reason for starting this podcast is I don't think there's a lot of information out there on bridging into the sports community. When I was in college and trying to figure out like what I wanted to do with my life, it was hard to find information. I think there's a lot of information on if you want to go be a doctor, this is the route that you should take. If you want to go be an accountant, here's how you become a CPA. There's a lot of information out there, and whenever I would go and look for information on how to, work in sports, it was like be a GM or don't work in sports. And there's so many different jobs and so many different avenues that you can take to, get into the sports industry, and really just want to hear a little bit about your story into it.
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously like my love of sports kind of started, when I was growing up. Kind of played a little bit everything, wanted to try as much as I could. Definitely a lot of soccer, some basketball, some tennis here and there, a little bit of everything. Obviously wasn't gonna transition into a college level athlete, as most people don't. So I figured from growing up, I wanted to end up in sports somehow.
Yeah.
Just watching the Phillies back in the day, I would listen to the commentators and be like, oh, like that would be a really cool job. And so I kind of like had that in the back of my mind. I was like, I might want to get into that a little bit. And then my older brother and sister kind of got into, my brother's into photography really big, and my sister's into videography. And so just seeing them kind of get their start in the creative realm, and like just seeing what they were able to do and what they were able to create from, just using the camera and their own eye. It's just, I feel like that kind of gave me the jump into wanting to be behind the camera and just be able to kind of create whatever I could on my own, and still be close to sports as much as I could.
You said your brother is on the camera. I've seen Nina's work. She's with the 76ers. And just that, I think that's so cool. I didn't necessarily have that to lean on growing up. Like there's no one in my family that kind of, does what I do. And then secondly, I'm the oldest. So I kind of had to, I was leading the whole time compared to, you get to kind of see, what your other siblings are doing first and what's out there.
I feel like I kind of say that all the time with things that I've seen, like my brother and my sister go through. I don't know. I feel like I kind of take little things from each of them and kind of like compile it into myself and just try to like get the best out of it as I can. I think being the youngest of my family, I think you were able to see two people go through things before you were going through it. So like even like driver's tests and things like that, like they did it before me. So like when it came my turn, I was just like, all right, cool, like let's do it. But I know my brother was the first one. He was like a little bit more nervous than me and my sister, because he didn't know really any better than what to expect.
Yeah, it's funny. It's something as simple as a driving test, but I was the same way. I think I went up to get my permit, and I actually failed the test. My first time, I didn't pass, and then I went and took it my second time, and obviously, passed my driver's
And
test.
here we are.
and here we are, baby. Side note, maybe we could talk about our media days trip somewhere later in this podcast. So to give a little bit of context, Richie and I, while at Temple, were tasked to cover media days for the football team.
It was a task.
It was quite the task. So originally we were supposed to take the Mercedes SUV, and unfortunately I didn't see that the vehicle took diesel gas, and well, the it broke down. And we were stuck for a little bit. Luckily, Scott Wallace, our director of operations, was able to get us out of that little pinch. We rolled up in some pretty sick SUVs and showed up in class.
And now every time that I see a Mercedes Sprinter van, I have to take a photo of it and send it to Santino just to bring back that memory a little bit.
Yeah, it was a fun one. I thought I was going to get fired after that, and luckily, I did not. I got to finish the season. So Richie, what are you doing now? I know your role is a little bit different at Temple now from when I was there. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing and what you're getting into.
Yeah. So as you said, I'm the video production manager at Temple Athletics. So, in my role now, I oversee two full-time creative content coordinators.
Yeah.
So, you know, um, so the three of us all kind of split up the sports across the three video guys, and we'll go out to each sport, practices, games, workouts, lifts, things like that, and just try and create content for them for social media, for promotional materials, some feature work, and just things like that. Just trying to cover. I think we have 18 sports, so cover the 18 sports that we have.
It's a lot of
and
sports.
It is a lot. But when you look at the Ivy League, they have what, 30 or 40 something. So I'm always like, all right, like we're not that bad, but
18
yeah,
just trying that much.
Yeah, just try and show our teams in good light, and try and get them some recruiting stuff and things like that to show what they're doing.
Yeah, I always found athletics seat so interesting because I always worked on the football side. I had a stint at Marshall where I covered all of athletics. But besides that, I always sat on the football side. And working for a coach and figuring out what their culture is and how they want to brand their team is not the easiest task. I mean, it's difficult to do, and you have to spend an adequate amount of time with them to truly understand what their culture is and what they're trying to sell to their recruits. I thought you always did a really great job in being able to capture that in your work, and I think that's a big part of what I learned from you is, like, you would come into Coach Collins's practices or morning workouts, and you really embraced what the culture was, even though probably the night before you were shooting something with basketball, and the culture is completely different. So I think being able to wear all those different hats is such a cool aspect of your job.
Yeah, I think like it helped a lot when you guys were at Temple. It was like we were spending so much time with you, and the people that I was working with at the time were spending so much time with you guys. So
Yeah.
like you were never really far away from the culture of football, and you kind of
Right.
knew what the end goal was and what coach wanted to get out there and things like that. And I think the same thing is true with the other sports that we have. Like the more you're around them, you can kind of see the players that they have, and the kind of style that they're trying to play, and things like that. Like um our women's basketball team right now, I think they're 4-1 in conference, which is like really good for them from previous seasons where they've been. And I think they have a lot of young talent now,
Yeah.
mixed with a few like older girls that are on the team. And I think like that kind of culture is being built, and we've been able to see it being built over the past couple of years. And it's like to finally see it paying off for them is like really fortunate for us, and it's allowing us to tell more stories for them, which you know the more stories that there are, the better the content is going to be from our end of things.
For sure. And I'm sure it's just so fulfilling to see all that come to fruition. The best thing at the spots that I've been at is seeing that come to life. right? Like all the hard work that you've put in, all the hours that go into it, and then to have success is just the best feeling in the world. And you help, convey their stories to make sure they can recruit at a super high level. And again, I think it's just so crucial in today's day and age. And the industry has clearly grown and is going to continue to grow. And I'm really excited to see, just in the 5 years that we've been within the field, how much has progressed. I mean, could you imagine in 10 years from now what this space looks like?
No, it's, I don't know, like every day that you're on Twitter, on social media, Instagram, whatever, you're seeing people increase their level, like step the game up so much more. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
like you said, in the past 5 years, it was like we were making generic recaps from games, and then all of a sudden we got into like the cinematic recap. And
Yep.
like you said, 5, 10 years down the line, what is it going to be? It's going to be something completely new. And it's like tiring trying to keep up with things, but also it gives you a goal to keep pushing towards, I think, which is also cool.
Yeah, it's almost like sport. You're always striving for better,
Yep.
right? I mean, you wake up and you want to be better, and I think there's a lot of young talent out there, especially in the space that we're in. I was talking to Anthony, who I know has been working over at football, the other night, and he's 20, and he's helping brand a college football team. I mean, it's incredible.
Yep. He like, you knew him when you were at Temple, I'm sure. Like
Yep.
he was making graphics for like himself, but to promote Temple at what, 15,
Yeah,
something
and
like that. Like,
it's amazing.
yeah. And like, I think we were talking about it before. Like when we were in school, there really wasn't much media coverage yet at the level that we have now. And it's like, we didn't really have the path to be like, okay, like we can start making videos for this program, and like
Right.
maybe they'll catch on to it, and maybe that can like transition into a role for me sometime down the line. But I think he was probably in like a perfect situation where we were starting to get into that realm, and he capitalized on it because he picked up Photoshop and started messing around
Yep.
with it, and figured it out at an earlier age than what we ended up figuring out our skills at.
Yeah, it's just like the accumulation of hours and reps with a program in your craft, whatever that is. You're clearly going to get better, and being able to start at such a young age is just such a huge benefit to that. I don't even know if Photoshop was around when I was in high school. Like we didn't have Photoshop classes, and some of these kids are taking Photoshop classes in high school. I mean, that just didn't exist.
Yeah,
So
I think I took computers, and it was like teaching me how to use Excel or something like that.
yeah,
And
here's
like,
how you type on a keyboard.
yeah, they had like the keyboard cover, and you're like, okay, let's figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly right. That's all it was. Most of the time in sport, you have to move around to climb up the ladder. Your story is very different from that, in which you came to Temple as a GA, and now you're leading a team. Can you just talk on that a little bit, and how you've been able to continue to grow within that role and make that climb, throughout these years? And it's been a short amount of time. I mean, it's not like it's been, 10, 15 years. You've only been there a couple of years.
Yeah, I think like obviously, I feel like anybody in working in sports will tell you that um, any opportunity comes with a little bit of luck and timing, and things like that. So I think definitely some luck and some timing were on my side to help
Yeah.
me get where I am right now. But like you said, I came in as a GA, spent a year as a GA. Just, I tell people all the time, just give it as much as you can. Like as much as you want to put into something is as much as you're going to get out of it. So like
For sure.
I think they told me I was going to be capped at 20 hours a week, and I wouldn't
Hmm.
be able to work more than that. which is like, some weeks you might be working a little bit more, some a little bit less, depending on what's going on. But
Yeah.
I was always like, listen, I'll come in whenever. Like, it's just I'm going to school and doing this. Like, that's it. I can come in whenever I'm ready for any shoot, any game, any practice. Like, let me cover stuff. And because like coming from Delaware, I was pretty much in the mix anytime I was out of class. So like I would finish up classes and go right down to our athletics facilities and try and pick up a practice or a game or things like that.
Yep.
So yeah, that was my first year as a GA. And then in the summer between the first and second year, I saw they were adding another position for a content coordinator.
And I think
And I
this
was
is
like,
about the time that I was hired at
yeah,
Temple, correct? Because they were kind of
yeah,
building that creative team out.
yeah. So I think they were, when I was a GA, they had the live production and creative together.
Mhm.
So you were pretty much tasked with doing live stuff and trying to also create content for teams. So it was like
Good luck.
everyone's minds were completely split, like half live, half creative. And it's just like,
Yeah.
you kind of have to balance it. But I think the first summer they ended up talking about trying to split it up a little bit more. So they made one person in charge of live content, and then the rest would be a little bit of live production and also content creation. So I think that's when they added the position that I ultimately got. So I interviewed for that
Yep.
and ended up being hired full time in July, I think. So almost a full year after joining Temple. Um, and then from there, I put in as much work as I could. Um, showed what I could do. I think.
Yeah, Richie's being modest here. He's being super, super modest. So this is this is how it actually went down. So Richie worked his ass off at Temple, and again, I came in and it was, one of my first, big time roles, I think, as a creator, and Richie put in a ton of work. And I thought what the coolest thing, Richie, about you is that you did things for the betterment of the program. I would call Richie sometimes at 11 o'clock at night to make a small change to a video, and he would do it. And that's just not who everyone is going to be. And I think when you are reliable like that in a position, such as yours, or really any position that you hold in life, you're going to have success. And Richie, I think it's just such a, huge testament to who you are as a person. And I think why you've been able to scale that job.
I feel like people would tell you like I don't really have an ego. Like I'm not like that. Like
Not at all.
if something needs to be changed, like I get it. Like I I think that's one of the things that like some people struggle with is like feedback on things.
Creative's
And
personal.
yeah,
It's a
yeah,
personal thing. Like you pour your heart and soul into it, and then someone shits on it. You're like, oh God.
yeah,
You
yeah,
take it a little bit personal.
yeah. And I think like in that sense, like you can't take it personally. Like I know, like I think whatever I make is decent, and I think whatever I had sent you was like good enough quality to go out. But I think you being connected with the program, you had certain changes that might fit your story and what you're trying to convey to your recruits a little bit better. And
Yep.
so like in terms of that, I'm perfectly fine with that. But if it's like, I think if there's a change that might make the video worse, I would probably speak up about it and be like, hey, can we talk about it? And, just try and
Find a middle
go about
ground.
it. Yeah. And
Yeah,
like
and
just go about it in that kind of sense. Like, I don't know.
and to that, I think it's so important to find that middle ground. And in our positions, especially when we started, and creative wasn't as big of a job and as highly valued as I think it is today. It's kind of just like go do your job. I think now, 5 years down the line, we have some more voice in everything. There's more trust that's built in, but that's just going to happen over time, right? Like I listen to a lot of creatives around the industry right now, and very often, it's the same story. Like there's a lot of frustration, and that administration isn't fully bought into the creative process, or isn't fully bought into surrounding you with enough creatives to get the job that they want to have done. I was having this conversation with somebody the other day, and I think it's so important to take a step back for a second and think about where we were 5 years ago, just 5 years ago. And our athletic directors probably use pagers at some point in time. You know what I'm saying? And they don't fully understand social media. And I think part of our job is to educate our administration on what is possible and how to storytell. And we're not always going to get our way. And that's just facts, right? Like we're not always going to get our way. But if you work hard and you bust your ass and you build that trust, when you are able to have an opinion, they will listen.
Yeah, I think like just going back to my time at Temple, it's like when I first started for the first 3.5 years, I had Dr. Kraft as the athletic director, and I think he knew what social media and what
he's a pretty young
games.
dude. In the AD game, he's a pretty young dude.
I think he understood it, and I think that helped us out a whole lot. Like even with like bringing you and me on, I think obviously he had to approve that. So I think he got it, and he understood what creative content was going to bring the game. I think
Agreed.
and I think I don't know. I think he's unlike many others. Like you said, he's relatively young.
I think on the other side of it was Coach Collins, who also has a great understanding of branding. And I think it really helped push Temple athletics to new heights. We were always constantly pushing each other to get better. And the results of that were really good. So I want to touch on this a little bit too. Bring back some fond memories. Another thing that I hear from creators all the time, especially from, it's both the football side and the athletic side, is there's not always a great synergy between athletics and football, or potentially now it's even athletics and basketball, as things are starting to expand and creative departments are growing, and programs are hiring a brand manager or content creator that isn't necessarily with athletics.
Yeah.
The reason I want to bring this up is because I think we had some of those growing pains, in the beginning, and that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. I feel like it's like it all has to do with communication. And I think at Temple, we're at a point now where like football recruiting and basketball, both basketball recruitings, and like each individual program is kind of open with what they want to do and what they want. Like obviously football has the manpower to create a little bit more than some of the other programs.
For sure.
And I think just being able to communicate with them about, what their recruiting account is going to be posting and what we're going to be posting, and making sure that we're not doubling our efforts for two similar pieces of content. Like, I think it's just like over communicating and trying to work smarter, not harder. Like if two people are working on the same type of video and they're both going to go out to the same audience, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And I think it becomes what we talked about before, and what's the best thing for the program? How can we get on the same wavelength to make sure that we are putting our emotions aside, our egos aside, and we do what's best for the program? And I think that's where we really turned the corner while we were at Temple, and just being able to figure that side of it out. It was the over communicating. It was you being able to put yourself in my seat, me being able to put myself in your seat. It's happening across the country. And it's like, how do you make it better? The answer, like you said, is communication.
Yeah, I think like since I've been here, there's been no one that like I've disliked at all. And it's just
Yeah.
like I feel like that can get lost in translation sometimes when things are like not being communicated well. Because if you're not communicating well, you're just not on the same page and it might seem like I'm trying to do this for some other reason that like you might interpret as me being like upset with you or like
Yeah.
not, like things like that I think can be misconstrued. And I think um, like I said, just communication and over communication solves so much of that. And I think that's probably the best advice that I've learned from that.
Again, it's just like that over communication and trying to figure out what that middle ground is to make sure the program gets better. That's the most important thing. Richie and I actually took a trip to Japan while at Temple.
That was one of my favorites.
Yeah, I mean one of my favorite memories as well. I didn't really know what to expect when they said we were going to Japan. I think we were both kind of just like, what?
So it's funny because like I think back on that trip a lot, and it's like I had two people above me turn that trip down. So the one I think was expecting his
How
first
lucky is
child.
that?
Yeah. So he was expecting his first child, so he was staying home.
Yep.
And then the the second one I think was on a trip to Florida and was going to get back a day after we left. So it was like they said no, and then I was just like, let's do it. Like, why
Yeah.
not?
And it was a blast. I mean, the seriously one of the best experiences I've had in my career. So we went out to Japan for 11 days. Coach Collins held some camps out there with several players. And I've never been cross country like that before. So that was my first time really, traveling in that capacity. And it was just the coolest experience, and to be able to take in that culture, and that was our job to just capture and document that trip. It was incredible.
I can think back to like I think it was my first trip with men's basketball, and it was to Charleston, and I've never been there before, and I was like, this is crazy, like this is so cool,
Yeah.
and just like getting to go to Florida with like playing UCF and USF and those things, and it's like seeing different parts of the country and things like that, and then all of a sudden it's like Japan, and
Yeah,
it's like
you're in Shibuya. Welcome to
yeah,
Shibuya.
yeah, and like I tell people, and I'm like Japan was never on my list of places to go.
Mhm.
And now it's like I talk about it all the time and I tell people you should go. Like it's crazy there. It's like I don't know, just I don't even know if I had a thought in my head of what it would be like, but
No.
it just wasn't anything like I expected.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the whole entire trip was an absolute blast and such a great experience. I remember uh, on the way there, Richie and I flew business first class. I mean, we were like sitting in the front of the
We got like the
plane.
little slippers and
Yeah, I mean
the neck
pillows,
rolls.
slippers,
Yeah.
the best food. It was like,
Food every like hour and a half. And I'm like, oh my goodness, okay.
dude,
We're
it
on to
was
this now.
incredible. Like you could watch movies the entire time. On the way back from Japan, Richie and I got pushed to the back of the plane.
We did. We did. Luckily, I didn't have somebody next to me, so I still had a little bit more room, but the leg room was not nothing
it was
compared to
it was
the flight
welcome
out
back to
there.
reality from the first trip where you can like lay down and
Yeah.
to that. But I don't know if we've ever even had this conversation. What's your fondest memory of that trip?
There that's tough. There's like so much. I think I don't know. I probably from like an experience aspect of it, I
Hmm.
think the baseball game was like
Yeah, me too.
one of the coolest things I've ever done.
Baseball in
Um
Japan is completely different than baseball in
it's
America.
it's like soccer in Europe. That's what I compare it to because
Yeah.
there's like the drums and then they have the cheerleaders and they have the fan sections in the outfield and it's just
I mean, they went
like
nuts.
nothing like here.
They went
nothing at
nuts.
all. Yeah. And
Yeah,
I
I
don't know.
agree with
So I
you. That
think,
was so cool.
yeah, from an experience aspect, I think that was one of the coolest things. And then I think just like, uh, I don't know, not to sound corny or anything, but like seeing our student athletes like experience it, because like, these guys are from all different walks of life, like all different upbringings, this and that, like, and then them
Yep.
going out there and they're being treated like superstars.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many of them are in the NFL right now, but it's got to be five-ish, 4 or 5 probably. Um,
5 of the 8, 6 had an opportunity, and I think Linwood Crump has not finished his collegiate career yet.
yeah, so like those guys are going to be, treated like superstars again here, but just I think that was their real first taste of it when they
Yeah.
were out there. So just like seeing them kind of embrace that and also embrace the culture that they have out there. I think like you throw these guys that are from like the northeast part of the United States, pretty much for the most part, into Japan, and it's like go. And then they're I think like thinking back to Archibong, I think him and Crump were probably the two most invested. Like they were trying to learn the language, any little like thank you and
Yeah.
please and how to order things. And I think they were like really invested in trying to like get into the culture as much as I could. And I think that was probably one of the most memorable things for me, probably.
I 1,000% agree on the baseball game. The Tokyo Giants game that we went to was incredible. The experience and how different it is from American baseball, just it was surreal.
We were in like a box and we're getting fed sushi, and like you're looking at
Yes,
the little fish with eyes still, and
dude,
then you're eating it. It was
1,000%. I 1,000% agree. It was like we were treated as if we were kings. And they did such a good job taking us around, and showing us this city. It was so interesting to see the difference in how America.
in the McDonald's, the Japan McDonald's and the American McDonald's.
Yeah. So, it really was unbelievable to see how like culturally different. And then I think the food, how we have it here in America was, and how we translate Japanese food isn't what authentic Japanese food is. And not everything was amazing. Like I think there were a couple meals that we were like, I don't know about this one.
Yeah,
This does not look very appetizing. And then
but it
we
was
hit on,
like, you know, just giving it a try. Like the seaweed, I think we had one at one meal when we sat outside or whatever that was. It was literally just seaweed in like a cup, and we're like, all right, we'll give it a shot. But like,
yeah,
I think just trying new things like that was like when I went into the trip, I was like, I'm gonna try stuff. Like I'm just
you have
gonna
to.
do it, and like, it, I don't know, like it's not gonna hurt you more than likely, hopefully. But
Did you enjoy Shibuya more, which for our fans is more of a Times Square, I would say, or did you enjoy Osaka, which I would compare to kind of Brooklyn? It was a 45-minute trip.
I think Osaka for
Yeah,
me,
me too.
like obviously Shibuya was like insane, and just like the crossing that everyone talks about is like a
Yeah,
mad dash
it's
across
like
the
Times
street, and
Square. I mean,
people,
it was legit
yeah,
Times Square in Japan.
yeah. Um, but I think Osaka was like, I don't know, kind of like you said, like a smaller, I don't know, smaller city, like, but
Yeah,
it was still cool, like with the river or whatever that was, and
yeah. I feel like it was a little bit more culturally ingrained with who Japan is. And I thought experiencing that side of Japan was like we weren't in a touristy area. We were. I mean, it probably is a little bit, but like we were in Osaka, like you get to see what the city is. It was very different. It was cool. So I shot at the hip on the first episode. Through your sports career, what is your fondest memory?
I think I scored a goal when I was 8 years old. No, I'm kidding.
We won the championship and I
Yeah,
got oranges at the end of the game.
No, honestly, it might be. I guess it would have to be the conference championship my first year
Okay.
when I was a GA, and like coming from I went to school at Delaware, and that's big time football for FCS, like
For
the
sure.
a solid team and play solid opponents and stuff like that. But coming into like Temple and I didn't really know any better, but they win the championship my first year there. And I'm like, oh, like we're like this is every
We're
year.
winning
Like
every
we're
championship.
yeah, like we're doing this every year. And I come to find out that like we hadn't won a conference championship since like I don't even remember when. Like it was
Yep.
such a long time. But like I know one of the guys that I worked with at the time is like you can call him a Temple historian, and he was like, this doesn't happen normally. So like I think just being able to take that in and be there on the field for them winning the championship and things like that. That's probably one of the best memories of sports that I have from Temple. And I still have the credential. I still have the confetti taped to the back of it. So I have, tried to keep a good memory from that, which I'll always appreciate.
I really find it so cool that you have that stuff because it's so important to keep those things and look back at it because you're a part of that success, just as a football coach or just as anybody else. So I think that's extremely cool. Thank you again for jumping on and being a part of this as I get it up and running. And I hope you enjoyed your coffee and
Absolutely.
and
Gotta shout out Wawa for those of you who don't know. Northeast staple. You gotta get here. And I guess Florida now too.
Yes. Well, again, Richie, thank you very much. And, hopefully we get to do this again soon.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Best of luck moving forward with whoever you have on next. And I'm looking forward to seeing where you go with it.
Thanks, brother.